My times in the Hampton House were very historical because I've heard of the Hampton House being the hotel where all the Afro-American artists would perform on Miami Beach. Back in those days, in the 60s, they weren't allowed to stay on the beach. They can only be there to perform. And some of those stars were Sammy Davis Jr. for one, and a lot of others. And the only way that I understood to go down to be part of the Hampton House, it was exciting. When I went there, I met Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra came over to the Hampton House with Milton Berle and Henry Youngman when they were performing on the beach, and he would get on the bus and go over to the beach with the black artists. And it was something that Frank Sinatra and Milton Berle fought for, to give the rights for the black artists to live on the beach in the hotels as a performer. So, I mean, to be a fan of Frank Sinatra all these years, and I was a little girl, which my father always played his music all the time, I thought that was very grand about a person like Frank Sinatra. You know, I didn't know he was involved in the civil rights movement at the time. All I'd heard of all this music and everything, but I never knew Frank Sinatra, the man. And it was an honor to meet Frank Sinatra and see Sammy Davis Jr. at the Hampton House, and it was just amazing. This Hampton House was always, it was like it was considered like the Waldorf Astoria for artists, because anybody who was anybody stayed at the Hampton House. They were made for the stars, the black stars, during the civil rights movement, and this is where they stayed. And I was honored to even be there. I brought my daughter with me. Me and Ali have a little girl named Miriam, and she was like maybe 6 months old, and it was in the year of 1969. And we was at the Hampton House before that in '68, and then we went back in '69, and I had our first daughter, and I saw so many other artists that was there. Mom's Mabley, and she was there. Malcolm X had been there. I wasn't there at the same time Malcolm X was there, but I knew Malcolm X personally. And it was just amazing. The people who was at this Hampton House, they were black owners, and that was very unusual during the civil rights era. There's not too many people that own their own black businesses that we know of that was popular. We had the best of service. The people smiled at you. I mean, common courtesy was like brought from the Southern roots, because if you recognize the word Southern hospitality, you know why. And they gave us the best of hospitality.